So when you're being audited, these are some of the things that you're gonna wanna prepare for, okay? So one part of that is monitoring records, right? Your log sheets, make sure they're, Here we go again. Hello again, PCQI, and welcome back to our All About Compliance channel. In today's topic, we're going to be discussing GMP validation, personnel evaluation. In validating our GMPs, obviously, if you have never done it, you're going to have to do one initially. So if you are, looking at your validation form, you're going to have three check marks on the top topics, and I'm going to read those to you. So when first one is initial validation, this is within 12 months of implementation. And then the second part is a reassessment validation due to changes made in personnel, plant and grounds, sanitary operations, sanitary facilities and controls, equipment and utensils, process and controls, warehousing and distribution, holding and distribution of human food, byproducts for use on animal food, defect and action levels. Now, the third part of it is now if you've done all of those, you're going to be performing your annual validation, mainly your reassessment of your current good manufacturing practices. So in this particular checklist, I'm going to be checking off the annual part of it, okay? Now, there's a lot of section of this, so you're going to see some other parts under GMP validation, but in this video, we're going to be covering personnel evaluation. You have to keep them short and concise. I know you guys are very, very busy, so you can take a look at this, within 5 to 10 minutes throughout your day, and hopefully, this video will aid you in putting your validation form together. And like I always said in previous video, if you need assistance on putting these forms together for your records, just contact us under info@consultainc.com. Now, let's begin. So the first part of this is there's going to be a question. It basically says, do records such as monitoring, log sheets, and similar forms are effectively implemented and properly filled up or filled out, okay? So part of this thing that I look at, now there's several of this one. The first part of it, let's look at visitor log under personnel. Obviously, sometimes you look at that, personnel is only your own core team, but you have other contractors or subcontractors that is part of your system. So what I would like to see is for you to also consider your visitor log. Mainly make sure your GMP declaration is updated. So if you have new processes, new PPEs, new guidelines, we all know we've been through the pandemic, so we have all of those disease control processes that's been incorporated through our good manufacturing practices. So make sure those are updated. I still go to facilities. Are you still requiring masks for your visitors or your contractors that's servicing your facility, or you're not, right? So make sure those are updated, so when you go in, and if you are requiring masks still, so make sure they're available, because sometimes other facility they are no longer doing that. So the contractor or your visitor might not have them on their person. So make sure those are part of your validation. Now the other part of it is on your internal personnel or anybody that's doing work or activities in your facility, make sure the job descriptions are updated, or the activity or assigned duties that they are updated with the current changes that you have, or maybe you had a new position, a new equipment, a new process on your verification activity, all of these things that helps you evaluate your personnel's performance. So it always starts with the job description. So make sure those are fully updated. And if they're not, write them all out, and then you can then create a schedule and get those kind of squared away on a weekly basis and so forth. On job description, let us know. We have an extensive library just contact us like I always extend our assistance to you. Now, the other part of that as well is new positions. So throughout the year, in this event, I'm doing an annual one. So I'm going to be interviewing, the production, warehouse, maintenance, and sanitation, as well as HR personnel, to make sure that there are no new positions, or if there were, what are they? And then I can cross-check job description to make sure they're properly in line. Okay. Now, the other question when you see your validation checklist basically says, does personnel conform to the hygienic practices to prevent the risk of food contamination and allergen risk of cross-contact contamination? Now, you're doing an annual one, so this is a little bit more of a challenge, especially when there is changes in management or in leads or supervisor, people come and go. So, this is going to be a direct observation from your QC or your QA. So when you are asked these questions, it's going to be through your observation. So when you're validating this, just go out on the floor and watch. Pay attention on, hair sticking out, they're not, your hairnet or your hair restraints, are being followed correctly. I have a beard, obviously. Sometimes, the beard coverage doesn't work. So what does that look like? For myself, I have my own set of procedure for donning my PPE to fully cover, and wearing my my eyes safety glasses to cover all of that stuff. But enough about me. This is all about you're doing your GMP validation. So please take a look at that through observation when you're validating this particular question. Now, I put some notes in here that I'm going to share with you, which is the donning of PPE, obviously, that I've briefly covered. Now, take a look at that. Make sure your procedures are updated. Maybe you had a new set of PPE guidelines, or that's been added to your procedure. So make sure your donning procedures are updated, and your instructions and whatnot are fully updated for your team, so they can follow those new procedures. And the other part when I'm validating GMP is PPE inventory. I kind of take a look at that. What are my quantity levels? So before I reorder, what are those trigger points, right? So just validating your PPE inventory quantities is one part of that. Then later on, we'll talk about how do you actually validate their effectiveness, okay? I've covered new PPE of how to use, and then we also covered training materials are developed and implemented. Now, this next part of the questionnaire is, do procedures in disease control properly implemented and recorded, right? So a lot of these things on recordation of it, sometimes, when I'm in the facility, I would ask the QC/QA or leads or supervisor, what are they looking for when it comes to the disease control when they're looking at, their teammate, how to spot certain rashes, on hands. As you can see, I'm under the weather. I've been traveling throughout right now. I'm internationally. So, now I got a head cold. How does that affect me going into the facility? Or if they are a lead or supervisor, how do they recognize that? And, what type of procedure would they have for a person such as myself, that has this slight head cold condition, right? Skin and all of those other things. So are there procedures for that implemented, and your QA QC, are they familiar in identifying those? Now, the other part of it too is when I'm validating GMPs, is also talking to the team members, not just my QA QC or leads, but actually their technicians and practitioners on site. If they know their reporting procedures, if they feel sick, do they know who to talk to, or do they just call first? Do they come in and be looked at by somebody for the facility, just to kind of make sure that if they can work or not? What are those things? How to report it to their supervisors and whatnot. The other part of this is changes in cleanliness program. So obviously this is based on personnel. Are there new changes on hand washing, gloving? Maybe there's a new hand washing stations, or there's new tenants improvements in the facility, new equipment, and all of the slew of the cleanliness program. We would then take a look at that and discuss those. Now there's some few keynotes here that I'll share with you. So when you're being audited, these are some of the things that you're going to want to prepare for. Okay, so one part of that is monitoring records, right? Your log sheets, make sure they're filled out when you're validating them. However, you're looking at those, if you're looking just on samples, like one file a month, because this is an annual. Obviously, I would do a spot check. I have my own format of how many records I'm gonna pull on a monthly, quarterly, biannually, to make sure those records review are being implemented and whatnot. So majority of this, I look at their GMP daily self-inspection logs and other records related to the good manufacturing practices, around personnel and facility. Obviously, I would ask for those. And also, now some of these things, the swab records, there are environmental monitoring programs that incorporates swabbing of gloves, and things, gloved hand, and other surfaces that involves personnel moving from one zone to the other, and they are incorporated under GMP validation. Now, I look at as well on the medical side of things, for this in reporting to supervisors. I do ask for those to see if they are recorded. What I see that is the best practices is when people are ill, they actually also submit a medical clearance or just a doctor's note as part of their policy. This might not be applicable to your process, but we do see that when people take 2 to 3 days off due to illness, and when they come back, they basically have an authorization from their doctor to go back to duty, and then the QA/QC or their supervisor accepts that to reintroduce that person back into the production process. Now, when we're talking about medical, some of you will be saying, well, that's a medical certificate, it might be against HIPAA. Please be mindful, this is concerning food safety. So this is segregating a person such as myself. I have a head cold, sniffles and whatnot. You're not gonna want me, right, touching your salad, right? You're not gonna want me touching your ready-to-eat product, obviously. So those are the type of parameters. So keep that in mind, PCQIs. We're not overstepping certain medical regulations. We're here to do the food safety through observation. Okay. Let me see here. So some of the things I've seen with the RT-PCR for COVID tests, when folks have COVID, those are used and are still being used today. So it's still around. So I've seen those. That particular individual was off due to COVID and whatnot. Now, how do we actually now validate this through the finished product? You just heard me briefly talk about, this is all about food safety. So for me, I look at it validating this particular on personnel evaluation, because we're touching products, we're moving it from point A to point B to C and whatnot, right? All the way to distribution. It's either we're moving it from the warehouse, opening it all up and things like that. So how do you actually validate your personnel evaluation? So one of the process that I look at is basically customer complaint trending. So some of us are GFSI standards, and that is a part of the requirements of having a customer complaint program. And when you are being asked by auditor, do you trend customer complaint, and you said yes, they're going to take a look at those and log that in, that you do have a trending program. Now, as a deep dive auditor, right, I look at those trend analysis and basically look at the customer complaint, especially, for example, the shelf life is supposed to be, let's say, 21 days or 60 days or 1 year and whatnot. All of a sudden, you're getting a customer complaint within days or within months of the product failing in the shelf life or stability of it. So I would then introduce that question to reevaluate your personnel protocol, and that's one part of it. I know there's a lot of contributors when product fails or the shelf life does not hold where we set it to be or wish it to be. But this is one part of that as a preventive measure for me as a PCQI. I kind of look at those. Maybe my hand washing program needs to be updated. Or maybe we change some chemicals in our hand washing procedure. Or perhaps my hot water system had failed at one point, and there's no hot water within 3 to 5 seconds of the faucet being turned on, or dispensing water. So there's a lot of aspects when you're looking at this particular validation of your GMP. Well, PCQI, let me end it there on the GMP validation. We're going to be coming up some more with all the aspects of the GMP validation form. And once again, thank you for your viewership. And if you see value to our content, please do share to our fellow PCQI and food safety professional. And also, please email me, info@consultaireinc.com. Provide some feedback on what type of things I personally need to improve and our process. I really appreciate it. And once again, thank you for your support. Stay strong. Until then, have a great day, PCQI. Bye for now. Contact us. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Thanks again, PCQIs. Have a good one.